use print and cut on the new Silhouette Portrait 3 cutting machine. The Portrait 3 is a cutter that's smaller in size compared to the Cameo machine, but it uses the same auto blade as the Cameo 4 to cut materials like vinyl, paper, cardstock, heat transfer, and sticker paper. Today we're going to focus on the print and cut feature with specialty sticker materials. You'll see a few new features of the Portrait 3 in this class. The auto blade has been updated to be compatible with the Silhouette Cameo 4. You can use the same auto blade in either the Portrait 3 or the Cameo 4. The tool style has a flat back and has an automatic tool detection feature. The software knows which tool you have inserted in the machine. This new auto blade also performs a one-touch reset and counts up from 0, so there's generally less tapping to get to the correct blade height compared to the original auto blade. Now let's talk about setting up your Portrait 3. If you haven't already done so, unbox your Portrait and remove all packing material and tape. You should have a USB cable, power cables, a cutting mat, an auto blade, and a cleaning tool. You might also have an adapter for Silhouette sketch pens. If you're not familiar with this adapter, simply insert a sketch pen with the black body style into one side so the lip rests within the groove. Then snap it shut. This converts the sketch pen into the correct body style with the flat back and automatic tool detection system. Next, visit silhouetteamerica.com/setup. Sign in to your existing account or create a new account. Follow the instructions to register your machine. This includes inputting your serial number and purchase date. It will run you through the machine setup step by step. This includes the order in which you should plug in and connect your Portrait to power and to your computer. Install the latest version of Silhouette Studio if you're not already running it. Open Silhouette Studio and power on your Portrait 3. The Portrait 3 can connect through Bluetooth, but you need to run the initial setup and firmware check with the provided USB cable. Make sure your machine is recognized by going to the Send tab and choosing your machine. It will show Ready status when connected. If you do need to update your firmware, it will tell you with a message in this same area. Make sure you are connected by USB cable when you run the firmware update. Once you've registered your machine, your Portrait 3 will add the free designs to your library in the Free with Machine folder. You'll need to sign into your library with your Silhouette account to access it the first time. Your library also holds designs you purchased from the design store. The designs are available to use forever once you've added them to your library, whether or not you have an active subscription. You can choose from thousands of designs in the design store, which you can access from the Store tab in Silhouette Studio. That's enough for setup. Let's move on to a print and cut project. The Portrait 3, like all other Silhouette cutting machines, is great at print and cut. Print and cut designs are those that have both printable, color-filled designs along with cut lines so your machine can cut around the colored designs. You first print a design onto your material with a standard home inkjet printer. Then you feed the printed page into the cutting machine and cut out your printed design. The Portrait's optical eye reads the printed registration marks to know exactly where to cut. Today, we're going to print and cut some colorful card fronts out of white glitter sticker paper. For successful print and cut, you should follow this order every time. In the design area, open the Page Setup panel. This opens by default every time you open a new document. We want to set our machine to Auto Portrait 3 or Portrait, set the cutting mat to Portrait, and set the media size to letter. For print and cut designs, media size here must exactly match the media you'll be printing on. For specialty silhouette media like we're using today, we'll use letter. Now check the boxes for Show Print Border and Show Cut Border. Now since I know this is a print and cut, I'm going to turn on registration marks. And now you can see the cut border has changed. You need to stay within the red cut border and keep the design out of the hash mark area. You can adjust your registration marks, but you have the best success if you use the default marks. So those are the essential steps with print and cut, and now we just need a design that has color in it. So we'll open the Library tab to open our design. These designs in my favorites folder are designs I've already purchased from the Silhouette Design Store, and I've marked them as a star for favorites. If you want just print and cut files, you can change your filter so it's only looking for print and cut. However, lots of designs like cards have print and cut elements. Any design that has color or that you can fill with color can be made into a print and cut design. So I'll set the filter back to select all, and let's look at the details of this Matchbox drawer card. You can read the description and you can see that it says it can be, you can see that it says the bicycle can be set up as a print and cut. You can also see that it says it can be compatible with the portrait. There's lots of great information on this description, including the design ID number if you want to look it up later in the store. All right, so we'll close the description and we'll double click this design to open it. Now this card has elements to make a card and a box, but today we're just going to make the card. So I'll ungroup and delete the parts I don't need. So I just want to keep the card base and the printable card front. And I want to make multiples of this card to have on hand, and so I'm going to make copies of this bicycle to fit on the page. Now remember, you need to keep it out of the crosshatch area and within the cut border. I'll go to the Replicate panel to make some quick duplicates. I'll select it, and you can try Fill Page, but on this one I think I can fit more in. So I'm going to click Undo, and with this selected I will duplicate right, and I want a little bit of space there, so I'm going to hold my Shift key while I press the right arrow, and that gives a little bit of a gap. And so now I'm going to make a column of 3, and again those are close, too tight together, so I'm going to hold my Shift key and down arrow a couple of times. And now I'll just use the vertical spacing tool on the quick access toolbar. And that gives me enough space, and I can verify that everything is within the cut lines and it's not touching the crosshatch area. So this could be ready to print and then cut. But before that, I want to show some alterations we can do on a design like this that's better for glitter sticker paper. So I'm going to copy this first rectangle, use Control or Command C. I'm going to open a new document and press Control or Command V to paste. So since I'm on a new page, I want to go through the print and cut order again. Make sure that I have everything set up in the right order so it reads successfully. So my machine is portrait, my cutting mat is portrait, my media size is letter, and I'll turn on the registration marks again. I'm going to zoom into this design, and I want to add a sentiment to this. So I'm going to use my text tool. Click on it on the left, click down on the page, and just type thank you. And now in the text style panel, I want to choose a font for this. Okay, so I want Monastery Hand. I'm going to click off of that to deselect it, click it once. I can type in to start finding the font I want. So Monastery Hand, that looks good. And I need to resize this, shrink a corner handle to make it about 1 1/4 inches wide. And I'll position this, oops, undo. I want to move just the text. I'm going to position that so it is within the cut border of my bicycle rectangle. So now I need to fill this text with color. Right now it's just a cut line, and by default cut lines do not print, and so I want to add a color. So I'm going to just go to the quick access toolbar, fill colors, and I'm just going to use the eyedropper to make that text the same color as my basket. All right, so if I wanted to duplicate a bunch of these right now, I would group this and make a bunch of duplicates. However, I want to adjust a few more elements. So not all print and cut designs work this way, but this particular design, we can ungroup and recolor the bike. So I'm going to click ungroup, and you'll see as I click ungroup that these bounding boxes will show that these individual elements are showing up as individual pieces. So that way I know these are individual pieces that I can recolor. All right, so I'll take the wheels, click on one, and hold my shift button while I click on another so they're selected at the same time. This time I'm going to open the color panel because I'm going to use it several times, the fill color panel. So I want a darker gray for these wheels. And the flowers, I want to change this red, ungroup one more time. So I've just got this red flower, and I'm going to change it to a lighter pink. So it's got a little contrast against the red. And I want to turn the top flower to kind of a dusty red. That looks good. So we'll zoom out a little bit. Make sure it looks balanced. I'm actually going to move the border a little bit so I've got a similar amount of white space with the text and below the bicycle, and I was just using my arrow keys to nudge that. So I am satisfied with this. I'll go ahead and select it all and group. And now I can do that same process before where I've just made a bunch of duplicates. So I'll open my replicate panel, make one to the side, shift an arrow to create a space, column of 3, with the bottom one selected, shift an arrow a couple times, create a space, use my vertical alignment tools again, vertical spacing, and so now just double check and make sure it's still within the cut border and not into the crosshatch area. So we could print this right now or after the cut preview. So we look at the cut preview in the Send tab. Now if you look at this, you can see that the text is also bold red, and we don't want that. We just want to cut the outside edge. So I'm going to select all of that and choose Cut Edge. And that means the designs that are overlapping, it's going to ignore anything inside the bounds and only cut the outer edge. So that's perfect. That's what I want. All right, so now we're ready to print. And I do have my registration marks on, so that's important. So I will just click the printer icon, and this is going to bring up a print preview. The print preview is where you check to make sure this is going to print like you expect. So if you turn on print bleed, this is where you would see it. If you accidentally had cut lines visible that you didn't want, this is where you would see it. Also, if you had a wrong page orientation, you would see it here in this print preview. So it's a really nice feature. You can see that those hash marks that we're showing in the design page, they won't print. Those are only for reference, so you know to keep your design out of it as you're designing. And this print border here is just for reference. You know what won't print outside of that border. And your cut lines are supposed to be invisible, which they are, so that's great. Now if we click print, it's going to bring up our printer options. So we will just choose the printer we want and click either preferences or advanced options, whatever comes up. And then you're able to change things like if you want to use a rear paper feed or change your quality to higher quality standard settings. That's all good. You would do it here. So click OK, and then I can go ahead and print and send it to my machine. Next, we'll choose our material in the software and make a test cut. If you already know your settings work, you can skip the test cut. The built-in test cut will make a cut in the upper left corner of your page, but this is an area we don't want to cut into with print and cut. We don't want anything that would interfere with registration mark reading. We'll insert the auto blade first so the tool can be detected, and all the standard materials for that tool will be available in the software send panel. The flat side goes toward the back. Press it all the way down and lock this so the grooves are caught. To create a manual test cut shape, we'll go back to the Design tab. Now you don't want to move anything on this page because it's already been printed, but it is okay to add temporary elements. So I'll use my drawing tool and make a star. I'll just draw it about a ½ inch wide. And I'm going to place it along the lower border of this page. It still has to be within the cut border, but I don't want it to interfere with the design. Now we'll go to the Send tab. And if there is a default material, you want to use that to start with. But in this case, I haven't used this one before, so I'm going to do a test cut. So I'll choose my material. We can start with the sticker paper glitter. And the action should be cut. And the tool is, you can see it's detecting that auto blade in there. All right, so I need to turn off the cut lines for these extra shapes. We don't want to cut these yet. I only want the star to cut. So this is what I'm going to send as my manual test cut. So I'm going to place the glitter paper onto the mat. I'm looking for, since this is letter size paper, I'm looking for these little guidelines for where to place the paper. And then to load it into the machine, I want the edge of my mat to line up with this guideline right here. So when those are evenly up against the rollers with the guideline, I'll just press the load button. And now when I press send, it's going to read the registration marks, then it will automatically adjust the blade to the correct height that I have set in the software, and then it will go ahead and cut. So let's watch that. All right, so we're looking for that star cutout, and I can tell it's so shallow that it is not anywhere close to being deep enough. So we'll go ahead and make a new star in the software with deeper settings and test it again. All right, so I'm going to make a copy of this star. I'm going to hold my Control or Command key and just click my arrow key while that's held. Then I'll make a duplicate right next to it. Go back to the Send tab, and for this test cut, I still only want that star to cut. So I'm going to set this first one to no cut. The only one that's going to cut is this second star. And I'm going to go ahead and adjust this to a higher blade depth. And you could do this in small increments. I've actually done this before, and so I know that the setting's going to work better for me. So that star's ready to go, and I will load it and test that one again. There it is. You can see that cut cleanly without cutting through the backing. So that's a perfect setting, and we're going to go ahead and use that to cut all of these rectangles out. Okay, so we know the settings are good, so I'm going to make sure that those stars are set to no cut. Then I'm going to select those rectangles with the bicycles and set it to cut edge. And this time it will cut my design at these new settings that I've got, so that'll work great. All right, so we'll load this again. Watching for the loading lines at the edge of the mat. This time when I press send, it'll read the registration marks and cut out the bicycles. So now we'll go ahead and cut the card base out of regular colored cardstock. You don't need to use registration marks when you are just cutting colored paper. There's no printer involved. So I will go ahead and copy this card base, Control or Command C, open a new document, hit Control or Command V, and I've got my correct machine, mat, and letter size paper set up, so I will go ahead and just make some quick, I've already copied that, so I'll paste again and paste a third time and just arrange these so they fit on the page. This one I will rotate 90 degrees by holding my Shift key so it snaps perfectly into place. Okay, so these are ready to cut. I'll go to the Send panel and change my material settings to my favorite setting of cardstock textured heavy. And I can see my cut lines are where I want them, and so I can just go ahead and get that loaded up before I press send. So now we will put our cardstock on the mat, again making sure with the letter size that you're using these little guidelines at the top. Load that again. Now we're ready to cut the cardstock. So I'm just going to take my card base. Sometimes I'll flip my mat over on a new mat so it doesn't curl the paper, doesn't hurt the mat. That already has my perforated line. And I'll grab one of these stickers. No adhesive necessary for this white glitter sticker paper. And just center it. Press it on and you've got your cute little thank you card. As you can see, the Portrait 3 is a convenient and compact tool for print and cut projects. I used white glitter sticker paper for these little thank you cards, but you have so many choices that go beyond paper, all perfectly sized for your portrait machine. Make sure to watch our other videos on the Silhouette YouTube channel to find further instruction on software and materials you can use with your Portrait 3. If you need help, please reach out to Silhouette's support staff on silhouetteamerica.com/contact. We hope you enjoy creating print and cut projects with your Portrait 3.